Now, for those of you who are bothered by the fact that this is in the middle here, we can change it, because remember, this is part of our home content, which means we're inside of our column, and we set vertical arrangement here. We say space evenly because we're going to have other user interfaces pieces there. But if you want, we can just change this arrangement here to top, like this. And if we run, we should see this is going to go to where it's supposed to. And there you have it. Next, let's start putting together these items here. So we have this card that looks really nice, and you will see then that this card here is used throughout this page, throughout this screen, which means we need to actually create a composable that can be reused anywhere else we want. Okay, now before we move forward, I do realize we have a few things inside of our reader home here that perhaps they should be taken somewhere else. For instance, we can move this title section somewhere else, right, in our components. Just cut all of this, go to our components, and just add it there, which means now we'll have to call it or import it as such. Very good. Close this down, and also our reader, that app here, we could remove that and add to our component here, which means this will also have to happen. Very good. So we're just restructuring a few things here. And for now, because we're going to be working on reading right now, that's fine. We can also move this away from here, our fab content, add that to our component. Looks like in this case we need to pass import alignment for this to work inside here. That's good. Okay, let's go back and import this FB like that. So now things are a little bit cleaner. We'll move this reading right now area as we work on it later. All right, so in our column here, this is in our home content. What we have so far is this, right, which is great. Now we want to start working on this card. So let me create another composable here. Let's make it preview first and say composable. And of course, going to function, call this list card. Book card, list card, the same thing. Let's call it list card as such. All right. We have to pass a few things, of course. The first thing is we're going to pass the book that we want to show. So it's going to be book. It's going to be our M book like this. And for our M book for now, because we want to test things out as we go, let's go ahead and set it to a book here. M book ID. Let's just put gibberish. And title, running, authors, me and you. And for the notes, let's just say hello world. And that should be good for now. Okay, so this is so that we are able to actually use the preview. Add another one. It's going to be on press details. Okay, this will make sense in a second here. We're going to pass a string, which is going to be most likely an ID of some sort, and unit like this. Okay. Again, let's just set up to nothing or empty there. What we're doing here really is that we're passing all the actual book, right? Because the idea is that the list card will have to have a book object so we can populate with it, right? But also, most importantly, we want to make sure that when it's clicked, this card is clicked, we either want to go to the details about this book or update and so forth. So we want to pass a clickable event there. But most importantly, also we want to pass some sort of ID because we want a way to know what is that we're clicking, and so that we can retrieve information of that book where we're going in the details or update screen. All right, now let's construct our view, our card. So I'm going to say a card, right? Use a card composable. And right away, I'm going to pass a shape because we need a shape, of course. I'm going to say rounded corners, and I'm going to just say 29.dp. And I'm going to give a background color, just say color. I'm just going to give a white color, give an elevation of about 6 dp, and let's pass a modifier here, a padding of about also 16 dp around. I'm going to give a height of about 242.dp. All these numbers I have thought about them, of course, but you can play around with it. About 202.dp for the width, and I also want to make this clickable, of course, and when this is clickable, or clicked I should say, we're going to call the onPress details, and I'm going to call the invoke, in this case pass our book.title. Okay, so it looks like we're going to have some issues. Let's go ahead and wrap that with either toString. Let's just say toString, that's fine. So right now, let's go ahead and split and see if we can see something, hopefully. And see, there we go. We have that list card, which resembles this. Now onto the contents of this card. I'm going to start by adding a column first, and I'm going to pass a modifier, and I'm going to say the width here of this column is going to depend on a few things. So I'm going to actually make it a little bit more dynamic in that I want the width to be depending on the items that we are adding inside of this card. Okay, so for that, at the top here, I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to set it to the screen width. For that, before I do that, I have to pass a few things. So first of all, let's go ahead and create a val and call this display metrics, and this is going to be from resources.display metrics. Okay, so what is this about? Well, first of all, we need to create these resources, and before we even do that, we need to create the context, because we need to get the context class really of this entire composable, so it knows exactly everything about the drawing, about the information about this composable. So I'm going to say val context. I'm going to use the local context. See, providable composable local context. You can read a bit about it. Doesn't have much, but it says provides a context that can be used by Android application. So I'm going to say get the current, like this, to get the current context, and then I'm going to create the resources, which is going to be through our context that get resources. So this will get the resources, like I said, for us to get, for instance, the display metrics. So you can see here, it's from Android util.display metrics. So what it really does, it gets the information about where we're displaying our app, right? So the sizes and so forth internally. We need that for this. I'm going to say val. Now I'm going to get the screen width as such. And how do I do that? Well, I'm going to use the display metrics, and I'm going to say get the width pixels. So now it's going to get the width of the screen. If it's a TV screen, it's going to get that width. If it's a Pixel phone as such, it's going to get the whole width of the screen internally. Right? To get the actual screen width, I'm going to, of course, do this display metrics, in this case, the width pixels, and I'm going to divide that by display metrics density of the phone. That way I can get the actual screen width. That's what I need. So now I can use that screen width, which is going to be the true screen width, if you will, and I'm going to pass inside of our column here. I'm going to pass screen width .dp, get the dp unit of it, right? And I'm going to subtract that by spacing, which is also multiplied by 2. And let's go ahead and create this spacing real quick here. So val spacing, I'm just going to give it 10.dp. I'm going to use the screen width that we just calculated, and I'm going to subtract the product of spacing, which is 10 and 2, so 20. So I'm going to subtract here 20 units. And then still here, I'm going to pass a horizontal alignment. To say alignment, I want it to be at the start, meaning it's going to be to the right, right at the beginning. All right, now I'm going to pass a row, because now I'm going to look at this section, and this is a row because we have an image of a book, and then we have these two items here, right? That means I'm going to have a row, and then I have column because I have to have these two top to bottom. So I'm going to pass horizontal arrangement here. I want to say arrangement center, and I'm going to add a column that I said, which we're going to work on later. Here, I'm going to first put together or add an image like this, right? So I'm going to add an image like this. So I'm going to use the image and pass in the painter here real quick. And because we want to make sure that these images will be coming actually from the URL that we get from our books, I'm going to pass here. I'm going to say something like this. Well, I don't have the image yet, but later I'm going to say something like this: book dot and get the photo URL. We don't have that yet. We'll get there. Now I'm going to pass a photo here, and I'll just say remember, because I'm going to be using actually Coil, which is a library used to load images, which makes it much easier and faster, so we don't have to worry about anything. So I'm going to call remember image painter. In this case, I'm going to use the data as such, and I can pass the URL, which I can get something and add there. And let's just, for description, I'm going to just say book image. Now I'll remember image painter here. You can see that it comes from Coil Compose, which is a library that we added the dependency of. If we go back to our project, make sure that you have this, because otherwise this is not going to work. You see we have Coil. I've added Coil somewhere. Let's see. This dependency. It's important to have that. Otherwise you're not going to be able to use it. All right. Now this image here, we want to make it modify it. So I'm going to pass modifier, and I want the height of this image to be about 140 dp and the width of about 100 dp, and I'm going to give it a little padding of about 4 dp like this, and I'm going to put a spacer right between these two. So I'm going to say of about 50 dp. What we're doing here really is that we've created this structure where the image is going to be, and we're going to give it a little bit space, right? That's why we put the width of 50, so that we can then have this column, which is going to have these two items in this column there, right? Very good. So we're making progress. We'll continue next.